packed lives.
The more tired that the child becomes,
Fun and things to do.
the more energy they seem to have.
Rest is like a dirty word.
Places to be.
We actually have this huge aversion
You can literally see them bouncing off the walls.
to actually resting. Yes, welcome to another awesome episode of Truth Be Told. We are Soul Evolution Collaborative. I'm Reverend Dan, and this month we are talking all about play. Play spiritually, play in life, play in all of these different ways, how it's beneficial for us and how we've kind of avoided it unintentionally for a very long time. And so this week we are talking about putting your feet up. And what does that mean? And really what that gets into is this idea of rest, because with play comes the necessity of rest. And rest has a lot more aspects to it than you probably have thought, certainly more than I thought. So we're going to dive into a bunch of those tonight. What does rest look like for us, maybe for you, maybe in the spiritual life? What does rest actually look like? So sit back and enjoy this episode of Truth Be Told.
Anybody who either has children, has raised children, or who has worked with a lot of small children has probably noticed this phenomenon. The more tired that the child becomes, the more energy they seem to have. At least in short little bursts of energy that come out of nowhere. You can see how tired they are. You can literally see them bouncing off the walls, that they are just ready to fall over and fall asleep at any moment. But if you ask them to go to bed, they say they're not tired. Or this is where it's like a ticking time bomb. Just the tiniest little thing can cause this major eruption and a meltdown tantrum that will blow your mind, the amount of energy that can erupt out of a toddler when they are super tired. Now, fast forward to adult age, and we get tired. We get overworked, overstressed. We allow ourselves to get overworked and overstressed. And we might pat ourselves on the back and say, well, at least I don't have those meltdown tantrums anymore. But do we? Looking at myself, when I am tired and more fatigued, that's when my temper, my patience is kind of stretched to the limits a little bit. I might react to people differently. Out in the world, we see people. I'm talking to you, Karens of the world. When you're out there and the little tiniest thing just sets you off, and then you'll use an excuse like, I'm just really tired. We know that we're not our best when we're in that state. One of the things that I've just recently found out about too is maybe one of my own little subconscious or unconscious tantrums. And this one, it breaks my heart a little bit when I realized, that this happens and realize that I myself do it, is when, say, my children will come to me and say, hey Dad, do you want to play? And this is what I just I just a simple simple shrug and I'm so tired. I've got so many things I've got to do. And I don't say no. The look on my face, just that little is enough that sends this message to the child that they're not worthy of my attention, of my play. And I'll still go and play with them quite often on that, at least for a little while. But my initial reaction sent them a different message. And when I learned about how we speak with our body language in these instances, I realized I do it more often than I'd like to think. And now I'm not saying this to be self-deprecating. I'm saying this to reaffirm in my own mind my desire to be my best for my children, to be my best for my spouse, for people in the world. I always want to be my best. And when I am tired and not getting the rest that I need, that's when I am more likely to react in this way, because it feels like we just don't have the energy, which there's so much going on in the world right now that it's really wearing us down, it's wearing us thin. And so it's all the more reason to want to do our best, to take care of our self-care. When I say I want to improve myself, it's not that I'm saying I don't like myself or that I think I'm a bad person. It's actually the opposite. I love myself, and because of that, I want to be my best. And long term, when I am my best for those around me, for like the example of my children, when I give that subconscious thing, like I'm just really tired and I don't know if I can play with you right now. When I give that subconscious message, it gets into their psyche, and these things develop and create and build them up unconsciously. So years down the road, when they are feeling low self-esteem, these are the little bricks in the wall that they have built up over the years. And so it's for all of us. As we talk about creating this world that works for everyone and really wanting to improve the things that we love in the world, this is why it is so important. It's these little subconscious things, the little steps along the way that create change in the world, either for positive or negative. So the more things that I'm aware of, the better I can try to move towards being my best self. So rest. We're going to learn a lot more, from Dan and Ryan about this subject, but I wanted just to stress how it shows up and why it's very important for us to do our best to maybe turn off the TV a little earlier, go to bed a little sooner than we would have, just knowing that we show up so much better in the world, kinder, more compassionate, more patient, and really sharper, smarter, more efficient when we take time to get our rest and not throw our adult temper tantrums. Karen.
Karen.
I can't imagine you, Chris, throwing a temper tantrum.
Yeah, right. I'd like to see what that looks like.
I have my own form of it. It may not look quite the same, but yeah, it exists.
I resonate with. With that idea when I'm not rested, whether that's just physical rest or just taking that time to kind of like calm my mind. That when things are required of me or asked of me, I do have that kind of like not another thing, or I have that response, and it's like that. And when you said that, I was like, oh yeah, and it usually is because I've tried to smash so many things in. And I haven't really taken that space throughout the day to rest or to reflect or to whatever I need to do for myself. And it's like, oh, one more thing. And it's like, if I have to show up one more way for one more person, and I can resonate with that. And for me, it's just like a buildup of not really taking that time.
Yeah.
So yes, that really hit home, like the importance of actually taking those moments to rest.
Yeah, same. I got to wonder how often we are in communication with other people where it is our level of rest or lack thereof that gets in the way of actually having clear communication. And it's always easier to recognize in someone else, right? It's always
everything.
Yeah, right. Yeah, like everything. Yeah. But I wonder if there were a way to be more cognizant of that. How different would our communication be with other people? If we all kind of, I can almost imagine having like a rest meter somewhere, like we carry around a rest meter with us that gauges like our level of energy. It's like, you need rest. Oh, okay.
It sounds like a teacher idea.
But then also
like need something.
Yeah, right. But then also like doing it. I mean, I know I have had, I think I've gotten at least a little bit better, but I have had this pattern in my past where go, crash. And the crash becomes the rest because I have to.
Yeah, right.
And not because it's really like rejuvenating. It's not refreshing rest. It's you need to rest because you got nothing left, buddy.
Yeah.
And that's I've gotten better than I have been at that. But I think the idea of rest, of like regular rest, intentional rest, rejuvenating rest. Yeah,
that's a really good point. Like we see that happen all the time. That the universe will make you, get your rest if you need it, and it might be like a broken femur, where you're going to get your rest. You're going to be in bed for 2 months, or you definitely want to take care of it before you get to that point to where all of a sudden now you don't have a choice.
Well,
right?
and just being very intentional about it, that recognizing its importance. I'm sure we're going to cover this in some of the other segments that we have left. It's like, I think it is this old idea that we've been fed. And so this idea that we have to keep on going, 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 going.
Yeah.
Um, uh, and I think, it's time for a new framework, to really be intentional about that and how that serves
Yeah.
ourselves and each other and those around us, when we do take that time. But
Yeah.
there's no medal in the end for working yourself, or like how many things you can get on your to-do list done. There's no medal at the end.
Yeah.
Um,
That idea. So when we talked about, like, it was about 2 months ago, and I like saw an article, read an article about what I was talking about in the video, with like the unspoken like body language that sends that signal to people. And once I read it, then I started noticing, like, myself, like, oh, holy cow, I'm doing that a lot more often that I would have never even had thought of before that.
Mm.
But then thinking about just how it goes out into that world, that we subconsciously we are lifting up or smashing down the people around us, and in the long run, the things that are best for us are the best for everybody. So it's like this selfish altruistic thing. It's both. It's good for you. It's selfish to take that time and make the rest, but you're really helping everybody else by taking that rest for yourself.
Yeah. Yeah.
In,
For sure.
I am someone who loves a good to-do list. You sit down at the beginning of the day and you write down all the things that you have to do, and then each thing that you accomplish, the satisfying check mark. Well, I've noticed lately that my days can get so wrapped up in these to-dos, moving from one thing to the next, to the next, to the next. And then at the end of the day, I feel completely wiped out from everything that I had to do during the day. And I'm sure I'm not alone in this. At least I think I'm not alone. So it got me to thinking about this idea of rest. And I know it's so hard for us, especially when we have packed lives of fun and things to do and places to be, and ways to show up, expectations of others. Sometimes it can be hard to make the time for rest, or even get our minds around the concept of its necessity. So lately I've been thinking about rest. And it just occurred to me that rest is all about remembering. I realized in my own life that I can get so caught up in the to-dos, in the expectations, in the ways that I show up in the world, that I forget that I am not those things. I am not my to-do list. I am not my roles in the world. I'm not my responsibilities in the world. And so when I take a moment to rest, it's almost like a remembering, a returning back home, or returning back to the truth of who and what I am, that, oh, wait, I'm not defined by being a minister or being a social worker or being a partner or being a friend. Instead, all those things enhance who I am and gives me opportunities and platforms to show up in that way in the world. But in essence, who I am is an individualized expression of this thing that is back of all things. And it's when I rest. It's when I take that pause. It's when I can really sink into that truth. And I'm reminded of when I've done yoga. You're in the poses and you're going from one thing to the next, one flow to the next, building up this heat in your body and sweat, and you're just in the flow. And at the end, when you're in Savasana, that relaxation pose, it's then that the activity of the practice, the vibrations of the practice can really sink into our bodies, and then we incorporate all those things. we incorporate what we've learned. We've incorporated the strength and the stretching and the flexibility and the vitality that those practices have given us, but it's in the rest that it's incorporated. And oh my God, what a great metaphor for life, that we do wonderful things in the world and we have wonderful interactions, and sometimes we have challenging things in our world and challenging interactions. But in those moments of rest, we can come back home, come back to the center, and allow the vibrations of our experiences to integrate into who we are. And it's through that integration, the integration of rest, that we can incorporate all the things that we've learned, all the ways that we have evolved, and all the new perspectives that we may have gained in our day. It's in that rest that we can truly reflect on and incorporate that into our lives. And so in essence, rest is integral, and I will even say imperative, to who we are. And we see that in our natural bodies. Our bodies naturally crave rest. And so I invite you to take that opportunity to put the sticky notes aside, put the to-do list aside, to put the expectations and roles aside, even just for a moment. And seek into that space of rest, that space of remembering, that space of integration. And then it's from this space that we can live more fully, experience the vitality of life and the wholeness that life has to offer.
The yoga, that was a great example. The Savasana. That brought it all home for me.
Yeah.
Except I thought you were going to film it from your bed. So what happened there?
I thought about that, but then I thought I might fall asleep. All this talk about rest is making me sleepy.
Yeah, right. It sounded so grounding and like, oh yeah. And I just so many thoughts started going through my mind. Mostly good, but the one that stuck out the most for me was like that reactionary thought of like, yeah, but life,
Mm-hmm.
how do we, there's no room for that, and I think that's probably feels true for a lot of people, that like the rest of life tells us to define ourselves so much by our roles that we don't even have the time to rest from being that role.
Yeah.
And I remember that feeling true.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so I guess this is just kind of like the note for anyone who's listening, that where they're like, that does feel true. It is totally what we're talking about really is like just an intention to include a different way of being in our life. And it literally takes like shifting your lifestyle enough that room gets created by setting that intention. Room in your life, space in your life actually gets created to having the time. And I don't know how else to describe the process of that happening other than I got so freaking sick and tired of not having the time that I literally I was like, no, never again.
Yeah.
Am I going to be so busy that I don't have the time to even the time to be with family, or the time to stop and take care of myself. And certainly there are weeks like this, ironically, this is one of those weeks where there's just a lot going on. But that stands out for me now as the exception and not the norm. So I think it really is deciding the intention to, set the intention that I'm going to do this different.
Yeah.
And because I think life, if we were to listen to life around us, you don't have time to not be doing something.
Well, and rest looks different for everyone. I mean, rest could be
Yeah.
taking a moment and listening to a song. Rest could be getting on a bike and riding. Rest could be going swimming. Rest could be like, I think for me, it's like those things that bring you joy and you
Mm.
know what it is, or just that little surge of energy. I mean, rest could be, I don't know, texting a friend to see how they're doing, or a phone call, so it's like, I think that it's anything that really kind of gets us out of the almost like gets us out of our head for a moment and then into like actually our body in this space and time in this, and just allows us to experience that fully. And I think that looks different for everyone, but I know that, yeah, I mean, it's a challenge. I mean, I think, when we do these, like the videos and, do the talk, it seems so easy.
Just do
Right.
this.
Just do that. And, I recognize that often I'm like, oh shit, I need to like check my own self, and I think it is, but I think you like what you're talking about is this shift in our way of viewing things, in the way of showing up, and it's not easy, and it takes some intentional focus and turning and turning away from and turning towards uh, that which we want to experience.
Yeah.
And also being in a community of folks like this that support each other in that, and in the highs and lows of that too.
Yeah. Just being around someone or a group of someones who are like, yeah, there is a new way. Everything doesn't have to be the way it always was.
Right.
It's like, oh wait, what? Really? Cool.
Well, and I think that there's a big difference too. I think it's like sometimes the motive behind it. I think there's nothing wrong with being busy and having responsibilities and showing up in all these different ways. I mean, that can be super exciting and energy giving.
Yeah.
But I think when our motive becomes, I've got to do this so I'm good enough, or if I don't do this, I got to get more. It's got when it comes from that space of, because I've done that a lot. I've said yes to things when I should have said no, because in the back of my mind, I'm like, what will that person think? Or, if I do this, maybe I'll feel good enough. Or if I do this, maybe I'll feel whatever, fill in the blank. And so I think it is just sometimes simply that it's okay to say no, and it's okay to choose intentionally the things that we want to do on our to-do list, and we don't have to be busy every single second of the day in order to prove our worth. And so I think that's the ideal. I think that is calling to be shifted.
Yeah.
So I appreciate where all this went. And I think we kind of touched on it, but like what's coming up for me is thinking about, like I've worked in a lot of restaurants and I've worked with, a lot of people, like especially in the kitchen, that they're working like 2 40-hour-a-week jobs just to get the bills paid, living in big cities. How, so it's kind of like a different thing. Like it's, necessity. So then it's like, okay, so I like that you brought up, maybe it's just taking like a 15-minute walk in nature, something intentional, because, sometimes we can kind of, these talks come from kind of like a privileged place.
Yeah.
And, I think that there's value in this subject, and how do we get that there? How do we help those people find a way to?
Yeah. Well, yeah.
It's
I
tough.
was kind of trying to balance that line, because I think both things are true, right? Like that experience is very real and very true for people who are in it. And we also know that there is the opportunity. There's a possibility. There is a possibility of changing that experience. So, right. So there is the possibility of setting the intention. And I think the bigger picture is the way life is set up in the world of conditions in front of us does not work. And so it has created a scenario where it is possible to work 2 40-hour jobs a week and still not have ends met. And that's just fucking insane.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And there's no amount of rest that fixed that.
Yeah.
And it's like all, to some degree, I mean, all of the topics that we could talk about any week could bring us back to that conversation of like, yeah, does any of the shit we're talking about really matter if and when? Like,
Right.
I mean, we got it. There's so much stuff out in the world we do need to change. It's not a matter of that person in that kitchen in that restaurant needs to pick up their bootstraps and work harder. Like, that's just
Right.
crazy. And maybe that was true like 60 years ago, where you could work your way up and out of the kitchen into whatever. And now all of a sudden, buy a house on your, 40-hour a week sous chef job. I don't know. Like, I don't know. Maybe that was possible, but like, that is just not possible now,
Right.
And there is also truth to, we can use anyone in any scenario can use these principles to change how life shows up for them, without that being a place of privilege. Now, obviously, being in a place of privilege, it's way easier to do that.
Yeah.
So I don't know what the answer is,
Right.
other than shit needs to change. But I think that's a lot of what's coming up all over the place. Is this this around us doesn't work, and there's a lot of people who are way too comfortable in thinking that it used to work,
right,
to not
it was
change.
never really working. It was working for very few people, but
Yeah,
but now it became very obvious. And so hopefully we're making that shift in that right direction, but we definitely have a long ways to go.
And so I mean, even working 80 hours a week, we still need rest.
Yes,
Absolutely.
That's not the solution for the necessity of working 80 hours a week, but
every little bit you can get helps for sure.
All right, well, since you brought it up, Chris, you're up.
All right. Be Debbie Downer here for a little bit today. All right, so we're not done yet here tonight. We want to, just express appreciation for you being here, and we want to take a moment to let you know a little bit about Soul Evolution Collaborative and how you can get involved in whatever way works best for you. The Soul Evolution Collaborative is an innovative spiritual collaboration dedicated to the intentional evolution and authenticity of the human soul. This is a safe space to belong and be seen. Here are a few of the many ways you can get involved. Tuesday night, Truth Be Told, this is what you're watching right now. And Thursday nights, we do the gathering. It is at 7 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. It's a group experience where we take an even closer look at the topic for the week and how it shows up in our own personal lives and the healing and transformative power of belonging and connection. Sundays, we do Strip Down Sunday, which is a streamlined approach to your Sunday experience through a mostly short and sweet approach to our weekly theme. And then coming soon, we're going to have our second Sunday experience, so stay tuned for more information on that. To get more information about these events, stay up to date and on any new offerings and getting weekly inspirational emails and so much more, check out our website, soulevolutioncollaborative.org. And now, back to Truth Be Told.
Put your feet up, which is really all about rest, taking the time to rest and rejuvenate. And at the surface, I think that sounds like a great word, something that we all could really use and probably even agree with until we go to actually do it. And this is something that I have seen in friends and family and in school and at work and really all over the place. Rest is like a dirty word. We actually have this huge aversion. Many of us have this aversion to actually resting. That we have these thoughts every time we rest when we go put our feet up. And I certainly have fallen, dare I say, victim to this for a long time. I go to put my feet up and all of a sudden start having these thoughts like, oh man, this is really comfortable and I really enjoy putting my feet up, but what about this project that I'm supposed to finish? Or what about this work that I need to get done? Or what about cleaning the house? Or what about this? And the list of things that my mind puts together that I should probably be doing instead. Who am I to sit here and rest while all of these things need to get done? back in college, in music school, we actually had professors talk to us about this, about being in practice time and wanting to go hang out with our friends when everyone else is out. You're in the practice room on a Friday night or a Thursday night, and everyone else, is out doing something else. And so how do you manage your time well so that when you're out, you're not feeling guilty that you're not practicing. And when you're practicing, you're not feeling guilty that you're not out with the people doing the things that, we also deserve to be doing. So this is certainly not an isolated thing. It is something that I know well, and perhaps you do also. But how has rest become this dirty word, and what do we do with it? Well, what I've found is rest is directly tied into our feeling and sense of worth. That question, who am I to be resting while all these other things? So there is this value system and belief system that we are a part of, that we live in, that values hard work, right? Pick yourself up by the bootstraps and work really hard, the American dream and all that stuff that I think we've debunked enough at this point to realize that the values that held that up decades ago don't necessarily hold up now. Certainly, there are many, many of us that still value hard work, but does that hold up to the test of time? Does that hold up to actually, does that hold up to our societal structure and what is actually needed now? No, no, it does not. So there is this value that says we should work hard. So when we are not working hard, we start beating ourselves up because we have that value instilled in us that we should value. So we can start, shifting our beliefs and recognizing the things that we really do value to kind of undo that belief, that hidden belief in the value. But the other part of this is our self-worth. Our self-worth comes up. Our self-worth is directly tied to, because of that value that was hidden or misvalued or essentially just shifted at some point. But because of that work hard ethic and value, our self-worth has become tied directly into that value. And so it is our job to do a lot of work, as much as needed, and probably then some, on our self-worth. Yeah, who are you not to take the time to take care of yourself and rest? Rest is essential. Who are you not to take the time to rest and put your feet up? So every time those thoughts come up, it's a reminder that there's still a part of us that believes I'm not worthy of putting my feet up. I'm not enough. I'm not valuable enough. I'm not working enough. I haven't completed enough. I haven't proven myself enough to take the time and put my feet up. We are in the middle of a massive shift in culture. And this is societal. This is not in any one single location. This is maybe not even just the United States. I think this is across the entire globe, that we are in this cultural shift. And so the things that I would dare say all of us have grown up with at this point, whether we agreed with them or not, or believed them or not, the things that have, the ideas, the philosophies, the values that we've grown up in are shifting and changing. And so I think we will see more and more of these values, these beliefs, these thought processes, and these single words like rest, that just have such a reaction. When we go to rest, when we rest, what are the thoughts that come? And so much of that is shifting and changing. And so let's just be gentle with ourselves and take the time when those things do come up. Let's take the time to just kind of take a step back and look, reevaluate, reassess. What do I actually believe about this?
Yes, all of that.
All of that.
All of that. You know, I look back on those times when I have just been, just been bone tired, just like
Mm,
physically and emotionally, just everything. Like I had nothing left. And it was, like I said before, it's like when I said yes to everything and no to nothing,
mm.
because it was trying to prove that worth. And I don't know if it was like this, like conscious, like necessarily consciously, but it definitely came from that space of like not being enough. If I can do this, if I could do more, I can do more, then I'll be enough.
Yeah.
And you know what? It never is enough. If you know what I'm saying, it's like if that is the source of our value, then there's never going to be enough. And so it is this like, whew, gentle kind of knocking, like, hello, it is like
Yeah.
coming back to and remembering the source, remembering the truth of who I am, that it's not based on all these external things. But that has been a challenging lesson, and one that I continue to learn, continue to practice, continue to forget. But yeah, all of that, all of that.
Yeah. Yeah.
It made me think about a couple of different things, just talking about like society's norms and what we say you have to do. So the first one that came up is like, in medical profession, when we hear about doctors in hospitals working 20-hour shifts, and that does not seem smart.
Right.
Nurses, like 12-hour shifts are like pretty really standard, and then longer, where they're taking like hour nap in the break room and stuff.
Yeah.
And then thinking about other cultures where, like maybe like Scandinavian, where, it's like mandatory paid 4 weeks every year. You have to take a vacation. You have to. You can't just
Have
take
to.
a paycheck and stay working. Or like the siesta, how great is that? So maybe
Yeah.
intentional rest as part of our work culture would be a good thing to
Yeah.
expand across the globe.
And it's kind of crazy if you really think about it, how all of this cycles into this weird, like, we're taught that we have to work hard, and if you're not working hard, you're not doing enough. So then you think you need to work hard, so you work hard, and then your value gets determined by your work ethic. And then it's like, well, then you need to make more money. You need to work more because you need to make enough money, but then you have to keep making money because you don't value, it's like, it's this really weird, like, twisted thing, right? And then, I mean, my point of view, capitalism has gotten so out of hand the way we are doing it here in the United States currently, that it's not possible for most people to work enough to actually reach that point of like, oh yeah, we can do things well, right? Like, it's just so twisted out of shape, and it just creates this cycle of like, well, you have to keep working, and then your value keeps getting distorted, and then we get less rest, and it's just like, oh man, how screwed up, you know and I know that the shift and the change is happening, and it's coming.
Yeah.
But it's like, wow, could you imagine? You imagine how different it would be if we had just any of those, like, these practices that other cultures or countries or societies have. Like, oh man, yeah, let's do that. Why are we not doing that? But we just, we get born into, this is the way it should be, and then it's almost like you fall into this mental trap of, that's how it's supposed to be, and so you're supposed to do it because that's how it's supposed to be. So then you do it, reinforcing that that's how it's supposed to be, and then we keep doing. It's
Well, and I think maybe the greater conversation, I mean, I know we're talking about rest, but I wonder if we like take even like a zoom out a little bit, just exactly what you said is that we often do things because they've always been done this way, whether it's work or whatever. And I wonder what I don't wonder, I know what's being called forth now is to really look at things and say, wait a second, these things aren't working in these certain areas, whether it's in our spiritual communities, whether it's in, our communities where we live, whether it's in our society and our political structures and areas where people are disenfranchised and like these things aren't working. And so began to create a culture that shifts that.
Yeah.
And so that it goes so, and it just, it trickles down into everything. I mean, we're talking specifically about rest now, but it's just this whole mindset. And so like what's being called forth is just a change in mindset, wherever you may be sitting now. It's like this shift, or just begin to be conscious of some of these like invisible structures and invisible expectations in which we've just been operating on default, and to really like whatever it is for you, to look at those things and to begin to make those little small shifts.
Yeah.
That's what it feels like. Just something different is being called for.
Well, and I think that's that's where that we do find that balance in this conversation is, this extreme seems true and this extreme seems true. And we find that balance in that point of, the capital T truth compared to the experience, right? Each individual being able to make those tiny shifts. When enough of us make those tiny shifts in the right direction, that's when there's massive change. And I think I would say throughout the history of most of New Thought in general, I think those small changes have been happening in all of these different directions. And it's like, so everyone's like tugging in their own direction, just kind of like trying to stretch this thing, but really not going anywhere. And I think we're hitting a place where people aware of New Thought and people not aware of New Thought are making changes in a very unified direction. And I think that's where the big change is going to come from.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yep, I do too.
Changes are coming. Changes are coming.
Yeah, for sure.
So thank you for joining us. As you can tell, we have absolutely the most amazing job. It's so fun to explore these topics and new ways of looking at things. And we enjoy doing this with you each and every week. And it's our desire not only to share what we've learned, but to journey alongside with you, because we're learning as we go as well, just like you are, as we're sharing this experience called life. And our mission at Soul Evolution Collaborative is to bring forth the wisdom of ancient teachings and spiritual principles in a new and innovative and sometimes crazy way. If you would like to support this mission and its continued evolution, we invite you to go to soulevolutioncollaborative.org and click on the donate button. All donations are tax deductible and serve to support this evolving ministry in its vision of personal transformation and communal evolution. We look forward to seeing you at Thursday night at the gathering. If you can't make it, then we'll see you next week.